Hello, this is Scott Jentz. Welcome to Sandbox Stories.
Hello, welcome to the Sandbox Story, which is an interview with Pierre Bertrand. He's an industry veteran who I met when he was leading Essilor in Canada and now works with Neurolens. Hello, Pierre. Welcome to Sandbox Stories.
Hey, good morning, Doc. Great to be here with you.
It's a thrill to have you here. Let's jump right in. Your role is Chief Commercial Officer at Neurolens. What does your day look like in that role?
The beauty of being at a startup is every day is a different day. So I can tell you right now what a day looks like is getting ready to start shipping our second generation device. Our Neurolens measurement device, second generation, we started marketing that about 4 weeks ago. We are at close to 150 pre-orders, which is equivalent to the number of total sites we had when I joined about 18 months ago. So the growth is just extraordinary. So it's a great time to be at Neurolens.
We're going to talk about the technology of Neurolens a little bit more later, but can you give us the company's quick history? When did it start? How many customers do you have today? I mean, 150 sounds like a number that's meaningful, but go ahead and give us a quick history of the company.
Absolutely. So the company dates back about 8 years. And it really got started by an independent optometrist in South Dakota, Dr. Jeff Kroll, who multi-generational optometry family. And they had been treating eye misalignment for years and realized that there was an unmet need in the market, and they needed to develop a better way to measure and then treat misalignment. And so fast forward to about 2 years ago, I joined the company really to help them accelerate. The technology was already there. I tell people all the time, I'm not smart enough to come up with the innovation. They just needed a little help to meet independent optometry. And so we've been on a great growth curve. To answer your other question, we're now north of 400 sites. We've just started a few months ago in Canada, which is our first international market. And of course, that means a lot to me as a Canadian to have Canada do so well. And we're really excited about the future here.
Well, let's go back to your beginning in Canada. Where were you born and raised?
So I'm born and raised in Montreal, a beautiful city. If you've ever wanted to go to Paris, but you didn't want to fly across the Atlantic, Montreal is a fantastic city to grow up in. My parents were both high school teachers. Fortunate enough that my mom was a high school English teacher, and my dad realized that English was the language of opportunity. So throughout my life, both my parents were French speaking, but we watched TV in English. We read the newspaper in English, and all my sports teams were English speaking. So that's how I got the head start.
Wow. Your dad, you said, was a real inspiration. Tell us about him.
So amazing man. First person to graduate high school and go to college in our family. So he was a high school biology teacher who aspired for more, right? His whole mission in life was to take our family tree to the next level. And did 2 master's degrees simultaneously at night while I was less than 2 years old. From there went into the private sector and started working in the computer industry with no sales background whatsoever. And interesting, I remember as a child, before he moved into the private sector, in the summertime, he would leave to drive tour buses to raise more money. And so, the summers were spent with my brother and I driving my mom crazy while my dad drove cross country with tourists. And that's what allowed him to make the move to the private sector. Um, and I'll always remember this because he didn't tell us until we were, in our 30s. But um, when he was in the computer business, the business that he was with actually went bankrupt, and he was unemployed for 4 weeks. Um, but we didn't know because he got up, put on his suit and tie, went to work, and for those 4 weeks, going to work meant finding another job. But he wanted to make sure that he didn't put that on our shoulders. So, fast forward to 7 years ago, and we get expatriated to Montreal to go lead Essilor Canada, which was an experience of a lifetime, and move into a condo along the Lachine Canal, which is a beautiful waterway just outside of Montreal, and invite my parents over. And he walks into the condo and he looks out the windows and he starts to cry. And this is a man that shows very little emotion. I'd only seen him cry once in my entire life before then. It was when his mother passed away. And I said, "Dad, what's going on?" And he said, um, when I was a kid, my sister, brother, and I used to come along this canal because the coal ships would come in and out, and we would collect coal to heat the house in the wintertime. And he said, "It's so amazing to me that a generation later, my son is leading a large organization and living in a condo, staring down at where we used to get coal for heat." So amazing, amazing man.
Is he still with us?
He is. He is. So they're in Canada. This
Mom too?
mom as well. Yeah. Bless her heart. She she's been in lockdown due to COVID with him for about 16 months. So thankfully we've got FaceTime so we can give them both a break. And but yeah, fantastic parents.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure they're very proud of your family. Tell us about your daughters.
Yeah. So my oldest daughter, Katie, 16 years old, um, an amazing young lady, honor school student, great athlete as well. And in fact, over the weekend, they just won their regional championships. They're going to nationals in 2 weeks in soccer. Um, just a beautiful young lady, and she was actually one of the first women ever to get a junior black belt in jiu-jitsu under the Machado organization. So just a beautiful young athlete and student. And then her younger sister Hadley is just about to turn 13, and brilliant young lady as well. And they're my inspiration. I watch we put these seeds right within our kids, and we hope that by the time they reach 16, they're really out of our hands at that point. They're running on the fuel that we poured into them, and to see the resilience and the strength in those young ladies makes me very proud.
Gosh, that's wonderful. So, on your original path of education, you were destined to become a lawyer,
Yeah.
but you took a turn. What happened?
Yeah. Well, um, we're getting up there in age, so some people may not remember this, but when I was in my junior senior year in high school, the big thing that was going on at the time was the O.J. Simpson trial, and watching. And again, right, I'm going to date myself here, but I would run home at the end of the day, and before water polo practice at night, I would have these VHS tapes recording all day and would watch hours and hours of this stuff. And so I thought, gosh, I would love to be the next Johnny Cochran. And so wrote my LSATs, did fairly well in them. Um, And again, my father, he said, far be it for me to hold you back from your dreams, but could I introduce you to some lawyers that I know? And got the opportunity to speak to a few of them, and they did a really good job of dissuading me from joining the legal profession. They said, if the courtroom stuff and the law and order stuff that you watch on TV is what is attracting you to the profession, run away, because the bulk of it is spent by yourself on documentation and paperwork. And so I decided instead to, on a whim, apply to one MBA school. I figured, if I don't get in, then I'll go to law school anyway and see if I can make a go of it. And fortunately for me, they accepted me into the program, and it was the closest Canadian school to the border that you can get to, the University of Windsor, 10-minute drive from Detroit, Michigan. And, the goal was to get to the US someday.
I think back about the O.J. Simpson time as one of those seminal moments, not like the moon landing in terms of importance,
Yeah,
but there was always that phrase when I was growing up. You always remember where you were during the moon landing, and there were some other
absolutely.
things like that. But there are a lot of people who remember where they were when O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco was driving down the highway
Yeah,
and being chased by helicopters. And there were so many names, right? Judge Ito
yeah,
and Marsha Clark and all these people who became celebrities because of the television coverage. It was really a boom for news television
yeah,
at the time. Cable was sort of starting to get distributed across the country. That's really interesting that it made you want to be a lawyer.
absolutely.
I just can't help but reminisce myself. So thank you for giving me that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was just to your point, it's such an odd time. I remember when the verdict came out, and I was lifeguarding. I was in the lifeguard chair indoors, and they were piping the court TV audio into this auditorium, and I mean, just amazing, amazing to think back.
Yeah, it was such an odd time, and for a family devastated, to be respectful, it was not a funny time,
Right?
but it was just such an odd experience of Americana. So
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
we'll, uh, we'll get back to eye care. So you've worked for industries other than eye care. Maybe we'll talk about those first.
Hmm.
What are the similarities between some of the industries you've worked in and your experience in eye care? Tell us about what you've done before you got
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started in the hospital industry. So for a company called Baxter International, um, and then Cardinal Health, and really that was the way that I got to the U.S. I was fortunate enough to have them hire me on, and you talk about uh, genericization of an industry. There's no more generic segment than those little booties that you put on your feet when you go to the hospital, or the gowns that they put over you when you get knee surgery, or and that was the first business that I worked in. And it was great to see, because we took a market that was about as generic as you get and turned it into a premium segment. um, Let me tell you a little bit about that. So
here?
basically what we did is, well, not me, I was a rookie on the team. I was just watching,
I, yeah.
but the very smart people that ran this business realized that the pain point in this category was managing inventory in hospitals. And what was challenging was that each surgeon had different gloves that they wanted to work with. They had, different gowns and drapes that they liked. And so they had to keep 16, 20 different types of gloves. And so what they decided to do instead was, let's simplify. We know that Dr. Smith has 8 open heart surgeries, and we know exactly what Dr. Smith likes. So we created custom sterile packs. So you would order 8 packs of Dr. Smith, and so on and so on. And what transformed a generic business was, we'll take all of these things, we'll put them together, And in fact, we'll even manage inventory for you. And what that did was it tripled the margin. It created 20% market share capture gains, and a really healthy business from something that was generic. So for me, that's something that I've tried to carry through my entire career now. So from there, I moved to Pfizer Animal Health, which is now called Zoetis, in the veterinary industry. And to me, veterinarians, dentists, optometrists, um, they're so similar in so many ways. They're led by really, really, really smart people that went to school for a really long time to be doctors. And one of the side effects that they may not have thought of or been prepared for is running a small business, right? It tends to be mom and pop, individually owned and operated. Um, and the key challenges have very little to do with the clinical side of the business and a lot to do with HR management, right? Leading people, thinking about a strategy to grow and differentiate your business. Um, so it was interesting. So, here I am. I come into the veterinary business. I know nothing. And, I'm given a portfolio, again, of generic vaccines. Um, they could be replaced or substituted by 12 others that are all cheaper than the Pfizer one. Um, and there's this little program that had been created, nothing had been done with it, that was called SelectVac. And SelectVac was basically a branding program that said, okay, you take your calves to market every year, um, we will market them as SelectVac calves and help you get more margin for it. And, at first, um, I thought, well, shoot, I've got these generic products and this tiny program and limited dollars. What if instead of trying to protect and defend all these vaccines, I put all my money behind the SelectVac program and build that up? And again, you go through it, and what happened was tremendous market share gains, tremendous premiums and profitability, and happy customers as a result, because they were making more for every SelectVac calf than they'd ever made before. So tremendous, tremendous experience. And I loved the animal health industry. Um, you know, whether it was the veterinarians or the ranchers, um, again, many times multi-generational, lifestyle and family were so important. You'd go and there'd be spring vaccination season, and one family would come help the neighbor next door one weekend, and then the following weekend they would go over and help them on their farm, and just beautiful. So always admired the participants in that industry. And then one day out of the blue, I get a phone call, and it's a company that's this small French company that aspires to help their independent customers grow by developing brands that are unique to them, so they can defend themselves against online and retail players. And so that was Essilor, and an incredible company with an amazing, ambitious mission to treat the world's largest disease, which is poor vision. And so it was an incredible ride. It really was. I'm so blessed for the experiences that I was given, both in the US and then in Canada. The greatest part of Essilor were the people that I got to meet at Essilor. To me, the people are the heart of the business. Culture lives and dies with the people. And so that is one of the key lessons that I took with me to Neurolens.
What I take from your experiences are this hyper focused approach um, to what the customer really wants.
Yeah.
And when I think about the hospital story, when I think about the veterinarian story, it can be as simple as the doctor saying at the time of surgery, I want exactly these products for my process.
Right.
And then they are telling everybody else in the chain, figure out how to get my products in this process, and you figure it out for them.
Yes.
And obviously, for the rancher, they want optimum product price for their product. But you're also thinking about creating sort of this connectedness to the customer, so you meet them where their mind is.
Right.
And I just had this beautiful, wonderful friend named Dave Getz who helped us with that at our software company. And I think we always tried to think about that in terms of what the optometrist really needs.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you guys are starting to do that with Neurolens.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great segue. The needs that the patients have are well documented. There
Mm-hmm.
seems to be more and more evidence, various sources that digital eye strain's an issue. But dating back to the beginning of measurable eye testing, there has been the issue of eye misalignment or tendencies toward misalignment. And you guys have this technology, first and foremost, that measures it. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Yeah.
Go through what the technology is doing that has been done otherwise by eye doctors and their staff in other ways.
Yeah. And you nailed it on the head, right? I think about just last week, VSP put out this great piece of patient survey that confirmed that over 2/3 of patients in optometry today are suffering on a daily basis from the painful symptoms of digital eye strain, right? And you can go back to the mid 2015s where the Vision Council raised that as a key issue for the industry. But the big point that you made, which is so true, is that this is not a 5-year-old issue or a 15-year-old issue, right? It's been documented in the 1800s with jewelry and textile workers. This is not a new issue. So the real issue now is that unlike the 1800s, where a very small percentage of the population suffered from asthenopia because of their near work for extended periods of time, we're all doing it now, right? And we're all on our iPhones all day. We're all doing these types of video conferences all day, and so the need is now mainstream. And this industry is great, right? So they saw an unmet need in 2/3 of the patients, and they jumped forward to the solution phase, and they thought, okay, there's more blue light than ever. Maybe blue light is at the core of the issue, right? And so we saw every major player in the industry come out with blue light reducing products. Over 14% of the glasses sold in the US now have some type of blue light reducing coating or in mass. But as we're learning, just a few months ago in the American Journal of Ophthalmology, they did the first peer-reviewed double-blinded study, and the conclusions of the author were that reducing blue light did nothing to reduce the symptoms of digital eye strain. And so what I get excited about, what makes me jump out of bed every day, is that at Neurolens, we now have a solution. And part of that solution is being able to accurately measure whether a candidate is symptomatic and how we can help them, right? So the Neurolens measurement device is the first objective, accurate, and reproducible test of misalignment. And it's the first time we've ever been able to measure central and peripheral vision at the same time in less than 2 minutes. And so, you look at the best practitioners on average, if they were to measure the same patient 10 times, could have a spread of about 3 or 4 diopters in their measurement, regardless of the type of measurement they do. The measurement device that we've developed here at Neurolens gets down to 1/10 of a diopter. So that's a really important piece, is being able to accurately do it And it's done typically in the pretest lane by a tech. So it relieves the optometrist of having to take that one extra measurement. Um, and then we translate that into our Neurolenses that come in three designs: single vision, office, and progressive. Um, and what's unique about these is that we've developed our designs to incorporate contoured prism that delivers the exact amount of prism from near to far that is needed to relieve the eye strain.
Is your measurement technology, back to it for a
Yeah,
second, is it tested against those that I consider in my profession to be those folks that have not only the science behind their abilities, but that artistic ability to elicit from a patient the subjective commentary that often gets them honed in well, right? We know that 1 millimeter of reflection difference off the cornea is 22 prism diopters of deviation difference.
correct.
So, there are some people who really have this capability of doing what they do without the technology. Have you worked with them to kind of massage their art along with that science that you have?
We have, and you bring up a great point, which is there's the objective measurement, and even in the very best practitioners, um, we know that it can be measured more accurately through our device than those practitioners can. What the device cannot do today is that subjective piece, right? It's the conversation of uncovering the symptoms. How is it affecting them? And what's been really fascinating, we've now measured close to 250,000 patients in our technology, and each patient gives us about 10,000 data points. So I really believe that we're a big data company that sells lenses as opposed to a lens company. But what we've learned is that a small amount of phoria can create big symptoms and big painful challenges for the patient. Larger amounts sometimes don't. So we're still learning why that is. But what's been interesting along this journey is the discussions that we have with optometrists and academics that maybe consider, okay, prism is for diplopia and really extreme double vision cases. We can deliver a life-changing amount of relief for somebody that probably wouldn't even been detected in traditional methods.
And to the audience, this isn't an advertorial,
Yeah,
right? Pierre and I are colleagues talking about something that's an emerging tech.
yeah.
I'm learning along with a lot of you. And so I think to myself, man, I'm an OD with a lot of pretest machines. I've got a lot of throughput that
Hmm.
I've got to deal with in my practice, throughput challenges, and you're bringing another one.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes isn't trivial. So how have you had ODs begin to think about working with you as a company and breaking through their logical concerns?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what brought me to Neurolens uh, was not the technology and not to sell another thing. It was really to help change lives. I think back to the times that I felt most fulfilled. Um, it was really hearing from patients and hearing from customers who say, gosh, whether it's a vaccine, a lens, a pharmaceutical product, or now Neurolens, it has nothing to do with selling something and everything to do with helping somebody. So, to answer your question, it really comes down to segmentation, right? If you think about, there are roughly 25,000 independent optometrists in the US. We know that many of them, the majority of them, um, are not a great candidate for Neurolens. We know that major retail is likely not a great partner for Neurolens. That's why we focused on independent optometry and a subset of independent optometry. So those that do well with Neurolens have made a conscious choice to put patient welfare and well-being ahead of volume. So um, that's where we do well. We typically see that optometrists that are great with Neurolens are willing to spend an hour fitting ortho-K lenses. Um, you know, they're typically not doing 12-minute exams; they're doing 20 or 30-minute exams. And what we've seen coming out of COVID for our business is a real acceleration because I think it gave our industry an opportunity to take a breath and ask themselves a really important question, which is, why did I go into optometry in the first place? Was it to see, as many patients as I can in a day, to rush them through from 12 minutes and squeeze 17 seconds with them? Or was it really to help them? And for us, that post-COVID space, even now, has been tremendous because of that question.
It seems like an incredible opportunity for optometry to then refer to other optometrists. If you're saying a minority is really the target,
Mm-hmm.
then what I see is an optometrist who's choosing to dig a little deeper on
Mm-hmm.
some issue than another. And frankly, there are some who, to your point, do long eye exams, but it's for a completely different reason. It might
Yeah.
be a disease state management, medical management of some other condition. And so I would encourage Neurolens to make sure that optometrists talk to their colleagues
Yeah.
about when they implement this because we get too little of that.
Yeah.
And it feels like a way for a doctor to sort of set themselves apart in the future. How do you recommend doctors deal with the future and the challenges upon them? Is it differentiation because of technology, or is it differentiation because of how they approach the patient? I think those
Mm-hmm.
might be they're not mutually exclusive, but they're not the same.
You're absolutely right. The word differentiation to me has been overused, not just in optometry, but in every category. And, what I really believe is differentiation is uniqueness, right? And what makes your practice unique? I think back again to my time in the veterinary industry, and in the late '90s, their big pressure point was pet meds, right? So pet meds was coming out, and you could get any product that you could get from your veterinarian, typically for less money. And I remember my veterinarian customers saying, "Gosh, what am I going to do? All of my profit is in my vaccine fridge, is on my shelves, giving them free and tick control, and they can get all of that stuff for a third of what I'm selling it for." And I said, "Well, quite humbly, I think your business model is wrong, right? What is unique about your practice is your professional service. It's your recommendation. And that's where you should put the weight, not in the product." And if fast forward now, 20 some odd years, we're having the same challenges in optometry. And so when we talk about Neurolens, or you can talk about other segments, be it dry eye, be it ortho-K, myopia control, it's really about what makes you unique in the marketplace. And you talked about optometrists referring to other optometrists, and we do see that. What gets me excited is a world in which 3 to 5 years from now, optometry is getting referrals from neurologists, getting referrals from primary care doctors who are saying, "Gosh, this patient is presenting with migraines and headaches, and they're on their second or third drug, and they're still not coming out okay. I've heard of Neurolens. Let's try that." And in fact, if you go back to the very beginning of this business, Neurolens was going to be dispensed through headache centers. So the business model at that point was, let's put a bunch of neurologists together with an optometrist in that office, and we will use Neurolens as a solution to patients that are suffering from migraines if they're candidates. And what we quickly realized was a better model was making optometry the champion, um, because that's where these patients were presenting. But I think, 3, 5 years from now, I want optometry to own headaches. And that's what gets me really excited.
I want to amplify what you said about differentiation. It's not I've put in a bunch of technology, so I now am differentiated.
Right.
It's a mindset and it's an approach. And frankly, as much as I love my colleagues in independent optometry who may specialize in deep patient satisfaction, I'm incredibly satisfied with my colleagues who take care of a lot of patients to the level that they choose to take care of them. Because when they see 10 in the morning and maybe I saw 8 or 4,
Hmm.
the reality is that they're seeing patients and sometimes patients who otherwise wouldn't be seen or didn't have the ability to pay for something else.
Hmm.
And what I do is trust optometrists of every type and every license to do what's best for the patient. Sometimes it's see and refer these things again. So, finding somebody who does something you don't is the beauty of whatever differentiated position you take. So thanks for emphasizing that and allowing me to add on.
Yeah.
I guess I'd finish with this. You've been skydiving, and I've never done that. And it scares the dickens out of me. What did you learn about yourself when you did it?
It's funny, but I think back as a child. We all go through this in life where um, we're uncomfortable or scared of something. And again, I go back to my mentor in life, my father, and he had a great saying. He said, Nothing extraordinary has ever been accomplished through ordinary effort, and the biggest source of failure is fear. And so I kind of embraced that. As a kid, I had a fear of heights, and I hated going and walking those stairs up to the high diving board. I'd get nervous, and so when I got to adult age, I said, you know what, we're gonna fix this, and signed up for skydiving, and went out the first time, and it was too windy, so they couldn't take us up, and there was about 14 of us that day. So we came back the next day, and of the 14, I think there was 5 that showed up on the second day because they'd looked at the plane and they'd figured out that humans stuffed the parachute in there, and who knows what kind of day that person was having. But so the 5 of us went up in this single prop plane, and they opened the door, and 2 of them came back down with the plane. 3 of us jumped out, and what an amazing! If you haven't done it, Scott, I would encourage you, because it's amazing. So the free fall only lasts about 60 seconds. And I did a free fall as opposed to a static line that pulls the chute for you right away because I wanted to feel that. And it's so loud, the wind whizzing by your ears is so loud that you can't hear yourself screaming, which is probably for the best. But then the second you pull the chute, everything stops, and it's perfect calm and silence. And that 2 or 3 minute glide that you have is just exhilarating. So just an amazing time. And then the other one that I'd always worried about growing up was, gosh, does getting punched hurt? And walking down an alley, dark alley at night, and you get that scared, tingly feeling. And so I decided to take jujitsu and mixed martial arts, and done that for years. And again, what a gift! I now no longer fear any situation. I'm pretty confident I can get myself out of, and it's a gift that I've given my daughters, and I've seen the change that it's made in them. So fear makes more people miss opportunities than failure does. You can fail, get back up, and try it again. I was reading just last night on the plane that the story of the Apple Watch, and if you haven't read that, it's a great story because when the Apple Watch first got launched, people thought it had flopped. They thought, wow, nobody wants that technology, but they kept at it, and they realized that the fitness aspects were more important than the aesthetics of it, and it now outsells the entire Swiss industry 2-1. It has crushed the incumbent in Fitbit. So it's really about continuing to move forward, even when you fall down and you scrape your knee, and really that is the foundation of success in life.
Very, very inspiring words. Folks, this is why I've wanted to have Pierre on Sandbox Stories. Pierre, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for motivating us to get calm mind and body and to let our fears not stop us. Thanks for joining Sandbox Stories.
I appreciate it, Scott. Look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait for a catch-up story in the future. And to the audience, thanks for hanging in there and listening to this entire story. Until my next Sandbox Story, be great at all you do.